Nope, this is not a video about how context is more than simply setting the scene. We won't be talking about triggers, challenges, real-life context. Well, maybe a little, but mostly we'll address the issue of questions. We keep emphasizing the importance of context in a competency-based program, and that's a good thing. After all, a competency manifests itself within a context. There also needs to be a challenge. Let's face it. In order to mobilize resources and develop our competencies, we need an objective. But do our students see all of this? Mine often only see nonsensical rubbish. First off, because I'm lazy by nature, I asked myself, why put so much effort in writing a good scenario? Why try so hard to come up with an engaging, open-ended question that asks students to reflect? Why find a plausible situation if students aren't going to bother reading it? Surely it can be done some other way. I then had to admit that I might be partly responsible for the fact that students skip over those first few lines of my learning situations. Is it possible that giving overly precise instructions makes reading the context somewhat pointless? What's the point of asking questions that have nothing more than the theme in common with the initial situation? Doesn't that make reading that big box at the beginning completely unnecessary? Is it possible that I forgot to teach my students why there needs to be a challenge in the first place and how to analyze it? Yes, I'm guilty, I admit it. But I've decided to change. Turns out that a few simple questions asked orally to my students made the difference. And you know what? I don't even need to write up additional questions. The context is enough. Only one big question and there you have it. Less is more. We have to leave things open for competencies to develop. When we spell everything out, we often trade possible engagement for mindless application. So, one big question written in the preamble and the other questions are given orally to help students who hit a snag. Done. Lazy, but quite generous. I've decided to share these questions with you. First category of questions, how to get them started. For instance, can you explain to me in your own words what is asked of you? Can you reformulate the questions you are to answer? By asking these, I make sure that my students have actually understood. Second category of questions, quality assurance in students' productions. By asking these, I avoid having to write up instructions, because as we all know, we don't learn from following instructions. What does the context tell you about what you have to produce? How should that influence your style, your tone, the format of your production? Final category of questions, guide on the side. In order to give them a hand, I take the time to help them with the resources they must find. What information do you need in order to answer the question that is asked? Do you already know something about it? Where can you find the information? Do you know someone that could help you? Simple questions, yes, but magical ones nonetheless. My students now ask themselves these same questions on their own. I don't even have to intervene. How great is that? Analyzing the situation is part of competently dealing with it, right? Isn't that what we ought to do when faced with a problem that is to be solved? In real life, my insurance company does not include a series of questions in the letter they send me in order to verify if I have fully understood the message. I have to ask myself these questions on my own. So I've come to realize that if I teach these strategies, most often than not, I don't have to ask any additional questions in my learning and evaluation situations. The context, with its challenge, is sufficient. Done with writing up to 10 reading or math questions. I let the students come up with the questions now. By keeping the initial context and questions simple and open-ended, the students benefit from asking themselves the questions that favor competency development. What better way to justify one's laziness?